So, hey everyone, welcome to the episode 4 of the UX show. I am Yash. I'm a Google developer expert on the web. We also have Victor Sanchez, who is another Google developer expert and from the Mamori Labs. And it's an honor for me to introduce to our lovely speaker, our lovely guest here, which is Pranshu Khanna, the head of open source as well as the staff community manager at MDN part of Mozilla. Pranshu, it's a very big honor for us to have you here. I would love to hear a bit about you, a bit about your background, just so our audience can know about you and your journey to Mozilla. So yeah.
Yeah, the honor is really mine. Thank you for having me here. Hello everyone, I'm Pranshu Khanna. I am the staff community manager at Mozilla, specifically for MDN, where I lead community efforts for MDN Web Docs, the trusted home for millions of developers worldwide who rely on web documentation. Um, yeah, my journey to Mozilla has been from a contributor to an employee. I started contributing to Mozilla as a as a representative back in the day. It used to be a thing. I learned open source from the Mozilla community as a college student, and just grew through the ranks. I learned what community management is through Mozilla, and before coming to Mozilla, I worked at a few companies like Intel, Highgraph, Unleash, learned a lot, and then it was time. My work as a community manager focuses on strengthening open source collaboration, improving contributor experience, and ensuring that, at least for MDN, ensuring that documentation keeps pace with how our users are using the web. And I've had the privilege to work at great companies, speak at great conferences, and sharing insights on such amazing podcasts, interviews, and places. And great to be here.
That's
Amazing,
amazing.
amazing. So, yeah, we'd love Victor to also chime in and talk a bit about the parts where we can talk about the landscape, maybe. So, yeah, Victor.
Of course, yeah. No. First of all, thank you so much for that intro, and thank you. I believe you are one of the guests that has more millions of users touching their products by far, right? As you mentioned, I mean, MDN is one of the first resources that all of us first learned, right? As a resource. But at the same time, I can imagine that is incredibly challenging, right? Because you may have such a variant audience all over the world. So it must be quite challenging. So tell us a little bit about the landscape of how is kind of UX at Mozilla. Give us kind of a quick overview, if you like, and yeah, how do the designers, the UX writers, UX engineers, how do you guys collaborate across these projects? And especially, how do you make something usable for millions of people, which obviously, even though we are all developers or trying to be, when we go at MDN, it must be quite challenging to have such a broad audience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with such a broad audience, we also have such demands, right? At Mozilla, per se, the whole org, I think UX is very collaborative. We don't separate designers, writers, engineers into strict lanes. Instead, we work in loops, right? When it comes to MDN, UX comes straight from engineers and writers and the community. So it's super grounded, it's super practical and developer first. Uh, we've got engineers who purely focus on maintaining the platform, but also building on top of it. You know whether it's just how it looks or how a contributor functions on it, right? Because there's both side of it. When we talk about UX, it's usually the reader, but when we talk about DX, it falls onto our contributors because they want to build on top of it. We want to make it easier for them. And we don't really have a traditional design team. Instead, we've got the same people who build the site or write the docs and who also think about how developers will use them. And the most important piece of this puzzle is the community. Because we're open source, everyone can come in and take a look that, oh, this is just too rent. So we need to change this, right? And that really keeps us close to reality because UX isn't just theoretical; it's grounded in how developers actually work. We've recently done a rebuild of our front end, Fred, which is really a great example. simplified and unified MDN's look and feel from a lot of feedback that we've collected in the last couple of years, and did it all in one go. And from now on, it just makes it easier for us to iterate on those changes and build and document the platform really.
Wow, that's totally amazing. I believe I have just one question around it. Like, how can someone start on contributing? Like, how can someone be that open source contributor to MDN part of Mozilla? I would also want to know it from a UX perspective, like someone who is a UX writer or maybe a UX engineer. And is there a learning curve for that as well?
I mean, with open source, there's definitely a learning curve. I would say different projects function in different ways. But at the same time, because it's open source, one small UX contribution, whether it's an engineer or a writer or a designer or someone who's just correcting a single flow, right? It could be as simple as that, can ripple out to millions of developers at the same time. When people think of open source, they usually picture code, right? But there are countless ways to contribute from a UX perspective. When it comes to documentation projects, not just like MDN, but you can go with Kubernetes or frameworks like React or Vue or Angular, right? They always need help in, making content clearer. Examples should be easier to follow, and making navigation easier, right? Or you can also jump to developer tools, right? Like VS Code or even Firefox, right? Or Firefox DevTools. There's just a lot to pick up from, and whether it's from spot interaction to usability, there are tons of communities, and the truth is that UX in open source doesn't always mean creating a polished mock-up. It can be as simple as rewriting a confusing sentence, and trust me, we get that a lot. We in fact get a lot of typos as well. But yeah, it's totally dependent on the patterns that you want to choose, and always start small. Always start small and keep the momentum up. I think that's how you started contributing on MDN as well, right, Yash?
Yeah, I believe so. So a bit about my journey. So I got to know it from Estelle that the MDN part of Mozilla could need some kind of contributions. Got to know that, yeah, there is like an edit option at the bottom. So we can just click on that, go to that PR, did one contribution and just got edited that I want to do more and more contribution to the open source. But yeah, I believe that Victor also had some questions and would love him to chime as well. Yeah.
Definitely. And I was laughing, right, when you were mentioning this, because I think that was my first PR as well. I corrected a translation from English to Spanish, right, which is my other language, but that was my first ever accepted PR anywhere, right, in open source. And I think it's really important, right, because people believe, oh, I'm not good enough to chime into this project. I'm not good enough to make a change in here. I was a minor when I, corrected a translation on an open source repo. So I think it is a really positive message, right? That even in a project as big as MDM, in a place as big as Mozilla, you can start really small. And the reality is that we make mistakes. It doesn't matter how reputable the repo is. There is always something to fix, and it can be you, right? Viewer getting that first fix, and especially if you find something that you want to change. That's the beauty of open source, right? And that's quite amazing. I have to say, even though we pass for humans, right? Developers are quite different to regular users. And in fact, many years ago, people started talking about developer experience instead of user experience. So I was wondering, inside Mozilla, do you consider developers a special kind of animal? Are we just users? Or do you make that differentiation between developer experience and user experience? Are there any special considerations that you have when you are dealing with developers versus the rest of humans out there?
When it comes to Mozilla specifically, I think there are different projects. Some projects are consumer focused, some projects are developer focused, and some are only for enterprises, right? So there are different ways to approach it. When it comes to Firefox, for example, we've got a product community, we've got a developer community, right? And we've got a user, how would I put it? The core user community, the ones who help each other on board and build on top of Firefox. So it purely depends on the product. When it comes to MDN, I think our core audience is developers, right? We I think are a platform which supports developers starting from when they start learning to even if they are 15, 20 years experienced developers, they still come back to look at a reference page or look at BCD tables or baseline as well. So I think MDN that way is quite unique, and we do approach DX and UX in a different way, but we we mostly see it as DX being primarily UX built by developers for developers, and when it comes to DX, I mean, it has to be fast, clear, and no fluff whatsoever. It used to be direct, and I think there are so many companies that I've personally taken inspiration from. I think Shopify is one of them that I see, or Spotify is another one, or Stripe is another one, right? Where you see a lot of examples straight up. There's great technical writing. There's great examples. The community is very well supported, and they speak clearly to you. So yeah, that's the way I see it. That's the way MDN sees it as well. That developer experience is basically UX tuned for technical users.
That is
Wow.
amazing insight. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I think I have also a takeaway that seeing the developer experience, or like being someone who was a UXC or more into the user experience. When I first started contributing, I just learned it firsthand from Will Bamberg, who is like one of the OGs or people who have been contributing for years and years. So Estelle introduced me that he was the resident pro in most of the contributions. And I got to know that, yeah, developer experience is something we are aiming for. We are not just paraphrasing off to the W3C. We are making sure that it is set up in a way, we write it in a way that the developer can actually implement it. It can be understandable, have some kind of demos, examples to go with. And I believe that really set me off to like keep making contributions. I'm still like very recently made the Carrot API contribution, so just add kind of specs out. I also have the like one of the MDN posts coming out, which is like more on the view transition side. So yeah, it is like I would encourage all of our listeners here like to just start contributing. Don't worry about it. The community is like so wholesome, and like it is like so welcoming. They will like, help you improve. If something is wrong, they will let you know, and you wouldn't like just don't think about being perfectionist and like making the perfect PR. It could have a bunch of errors. I have seen that even the best contributor till now would have some kind of suggestions or things to go on. It does not just get reviewed in the first time and just get merged. It will always have some kind of. And I believe, Pranshu, you have seen it in like lots of years. So like, do you have like any experiences with like how you measure the impact of people who are like actually contributing in through the open source? Do you are like, how do you check that? And I also believe that have some kind of a bot that tells us that these are the new contributors, these are the old contributors, but that's like all I know at the moment. So yeah.
I mean, when it comes to contributions, I think it's different. But when we talk about UX per se, I think data for MDN specifically, data shows us certain patterns, but developers tell us the truth, right? Our community is one of the loudest and honest community members I think we've ever had. And even if they're shouting at us, honestly, I think it's pretty straightforward for us to understand that something's wrong here, and we need to fix it. It might not be straightforward to fix it as well, but it's about taking your time, understanding the scope, because one small change goes on to millions of developers, right? And thousands of contributors as well who aim to contribute on MDN. So that's one. Next up, we have a lot of bots. We have a lot of workflows on MDN. They tell us contributors. They tell us new contributions. We've got a bunch of projects internally, which help us know who's involved, where they're involved, and I am I just built a dashboard as well for this. I was doing something last week. So last week was GitHub week. I'll give you some context there. Last week was GitHub week at MDN, which is basically the team focusing on stale issues. So we've got issues that have been open since 2021, right? Like 4 years, there's still no resolution. We're still tracking. We're still talking with the authors, right? We're still talking with the spec bodies. Is there going to be a solution for this, right? So making sure that we're on top of them. Replies, we've got a bunch of saved replies for our team, right? For the community as well, so that we can instantly tag people and not waste time on thinking, okay, what do we say here, right? There are situations that we cover very often. So that makes it easier. We've got projects. We needed to redo some of our projects, so we were doing that. And I even built out a dashboard as a part of it, where I was building a Google Sheet at the start. And then I was like, maybe I should do an N8N workflow that gives me a JSON, maybe I can do something. Then I was like, no, Python is easier because GitHub API is great. But then I was like, keep that aside. It's much easier to build a website on Next.js. And I just went out and did that. And that really is only to help me understand how the community is getting along weekly. If we have any conflicts, there are so many active conversations, right? And we need to manage that. So we've also got an editorial call every 2 weeks, where we discuss with all of our experienced writers, Estelle, Will, Florian, Josh, Onkar, some of our great contributors who join those calls and discuss their concerns, where they're stuck, and moving it along. And that's where our UX impact really comes in. There's a lot of ways where you can look for signal, but at the end of the day, developers is what we hear from, and we rely on their advice as well.
I have to say, first of all, thank you so much, because we are learning a lot even in 20 minutes here. I have to say, I was shocked at the beginning, right? You mentioned that you just released literally a new front-end system, right? Fred, as you were mentioning. And I was wondering, how scary that must be when you have developers that are so used to literally navigating that UI for many, many years. So changing the entire system, sorry to tell you, but it sounds terrifying to me. So I'm sure there was, first, a very good reason. Second, I'm sure there is a bunch of improvements that justify it, right? So I was wondering, how do you approach something like that, right? How do you approach changing an entire front-end system to deliver something new to those developers that, as me, as you, as all of us probably watching today the UX show, have been so used to that front-end? And tell me a little bit about that process of first deciding to create Fred and then implementing it and delivering it.
I mean, that really stems from the system that we had. So every 3 to 4 years, I think we want to look at our platform and see that does it fulfill our needs, right? Is it helping us push faster, and is it helping us to make changes faster? So even the smallest change, if you will have to rebuild your website and it takes you 1.5 hours, right? And everything just stops during that time. You really want to think about it, because MDN is not just documentation, right? It's 14,000 pages of English documentation, and then there are 7 other languages, right? And then there are 2 other machine translated languages that happen on the fly. So it's just a big bunch of web pages which get 15 plus million monthly readers. So a lot that goes on to it. So it's definitely scary, right? But at the same time, we wanted to make sure that the writing experience, right, building experience and contributed experience also is fast, because we've seen such growth in the last 5 years alone. in web technologies, that things have gotten much faster. There are so many more runtimes. We had a Tangled React app, and now we've moved to a lean architecture using web components, lit, and SSR. So the real transformation that was supposed to happen needed to happen under the hood. And on top of it, the UI itself, we did not want to change much. We had to be very careful. I mean, there are like hours and hours and hours spent thinking about what needs changing and what is too much change, right? Even the spacing between two lines, right? We change that. We hear we hear a lot from our developers, right? That this does not work. This does not work for accessibility, and we consider that. So that's scary, but it had to be done, right? And it had to be done in a timely, planned manner where we had the resources to make the changes as well. And for developers, this means faster page loads, smoother navigation, right? Better interactive features. And for contributors, it's game changing because spinning up MDN locally, it literally takes seconds now. It's super simple, and changes are isolated, and contributing is far less intimidating because, I mean, that's a part of my job where I focus on contribution experience, and if the amount of steps that you need to make a change is too much, right? That's friction on top of friction on top of friction. We need to eliminate that. So this has been a change that's been planned for, I guess, 2 years now, and thankfully we're able to get it done. And even after shipping it, it's scary, honestly, because
So
something
true.
will break. There
Yeah,
will be a user.
it's never ending, right? There is something an
Exactly.
next worry on that part. I get it. I
Exactly.
get it.
Exactly. And like there's still a version of Safari, for example, on mobile. I think yes, you are the one who also reported it, right? So
Yeah.
there's a version on Safari mobile where the website breaks. It's 2.5 years old, the the Safari version, but it's out of our support area, right? Where we stop supporting a browser, but we still have to support it because there are enough users,
Of course.
right? So
Yep. I think
yeah, yeah, go
one
ahead.
big
Remarkable
takeaway
task.
was that when we launched this new UI, I really loved it. I personally loved it, and there is like a GitHub repo for it where others can contribute. So anyone who is listening, we will just make sure that we have it in our description, so anyone can just go there. Maybe if you like something about the UI, just compliment it there. If you do not like something and you want to make a change, then just make an issue, file an issue, or maybe if you are like having some kind of development experience, then you can just raise a PR. Very lovely community would be there to help you. And I will also like really love that we also have a Discord community. Would also make sure that we can shout out that as well, so that like anyone who is listening here can just go there. We also have like community meetings. I have been attending it, so I can vouch for that. That those have been like really resourceful, so others can know like what's going on in Mozilla and be a little more in touch with the whole developers and the community there. So yeah, I would like Victor to take away, and maybe we have like had all these questions. It was a really like nice pleasure and lovely experience. Would love Victor to also like talk about a bit and his takeaways as well. Yeah.
Of course, thank you so much. First of all, I think we learned quite a bit, right? And as I was mentioning before, this is an incredible audience that you have managed to gather over the years. And it is kind of inspiring, right? To see both the respect and the knowledge that you have, right? In order to make these changes happen and to make it effectively. And when people visit something like MDN, right? There is such an effort of literally thousands of people over so many years to make something like MDN happen. It's been an absolute pleasure and an absolute honor, and especially knowing kind of your personal story on how you started as a contributor, ended up heading it, that OSS effort. I think it is quite remarkable. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer these questions. Thank you for watching at home. And as Yash was mentioning, either in the comment down below, in social networks, make sure to follow us. And if you have any questions, you want us to interview someone that is also contributing to the UX or to the DevX field, feel free to comment down below. And thank you so much for watching the UX show. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
See you, everyone. Bye.
See ya. Bye bye.